The trade line has come and passed, and the Cowboys got active. Let's get into it after this intro. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B. So it's official. The Cowboys did get involved in the trade deadline. Not into the perspective a lot of Cowboy fans came out to be. We wanted to be more sellers because if you're going on this season, it is over basically. We're just watching the last remaining games, and we want to get it to draft talk at this point. Because at the end of the day, we need to get draft. We're looking at draft capital and all that stuff, but the Cowboys did get active, but not in the way that we thought it was. We did hear news early this morning with what Jerry Jones talking about. He was interested in looking at some receiver in some trade talks. So a lot of people were going with Traylon Burks. I don't know why I can't talk, but from the Tennessee Titans, who's been dealing with some injuries and stuff, got a guy that a lot of Cowboy fans know about because they were thinking that's where the Cowboys are leaning towards. I'm trying to think, was he a part of that when we drafted Tyler Smith or something? I should do my research on that, but in that opportunity, but they didn't go with the Traylon Burks route. So they thought maybe they lean towards that. You know, Jerry's an Arkansas guy, he's an Arkansas guy, so it made sense. But no, they went to another receiver who they were highly interested in a couple years ago, and that is wide receiver Jonathan Mingo with the Carolina Panthers. And when you think of that pick, you're like okay, maybe decent pick. But when it came down to what trade package was involved getting Jonathan Mingo, that's when Cowboy fans and fans alike were like, whoa, that's giving a little too much for a guy that production hasn't been there. Because the Cowboys gave the Carolina Panthers a 4th-round pick, and then the Cowboys just got to return Jonathan Mingo on a 7th-round pick. But about 2 weeks ago, the Panthers traded Deontay Johnson, who's a better receiver, to the Baltimore Ravens for a 6th-round pick. That's when we started doing a little more research. You're like, wait a minute. That doesn't add up. A receiver that's better, but they only had to give a 6th round to this team. So it seemed like when it came to it, Jerry just jumped the gun, didn't even try to maneuver away into giving less for a guy who hasn't really produced at that level. If I can get the stats right, Jonathan Mingo between the 9th week and the 6th week only had 1 reception and 1 yard. That doesn't add up. It's a guy who's maybe 4th or 5th receiver on the Carolina Panthers, who's a team that's a little more worse than the Cowboys in this situation. When you're like, oh, we'll give him a 4th. We need a receiver. CD's injured. He possibly could play next week. We still haven't got Brandon Cooks back. And other guys haven't produced at that level. You do get some decent production from Jalen Tolbert, but you're not getting that. Outside of that, you're kind of getting insert whatever wide receiver. Jalen Brooks hasn't stepped up. And Kevontae Turpin is a better, more of a returner, not receiving. So you kind of lean towards your wide receiver 2 is going to be your Jake Ferguson, who had a solid game against the Atlanta Falcons. He's kind of getting back into that form where we thought he was going to be. He had that sprained MCL early this year. But he's slowly getting back into that form. But you need. So I guess in their eyes, they're like, oh, let's go with the receiver we were big fans of at the Senior Bowl and then draft a guy that hasn't really done anything in the league that would make you say, yes, he's worth a 4th-round pick. When you're thinking of trading for a 4th-round pick, you're thinking of a guy that's giving you solid production and everything else, maybe a tweener starter or a solid role player. And Mingo, when you look at it, he's maybe that 4th, 5th receiver, and we got a bunch of those. we don't really have a second or third receiver. We just have one third and we got one first, and everybody else is whatever we fit right now. So I feel like they definitely jumped the gun, and I think they could have got. I'm not mad at the Mingo pick. You get a big body receiver who ran a sub 4.5, but that's traits. He's not a savvy route runner. Yes, he runs a sub 4.5, but it's not where he's getting separation from the corner. And you could look at his film back when he was at Ole Miss. He can get those big contested catches. He's a bigger guy, but you're going against NFL players, so that those traits that he hasn't transitioned into the NFL like you thought it was. I was a fan of him, but even when I watched the film, I've seen a guy that maybe could be possibly your wide receiver 3. I never said wide receiver 1. I know you're like, oh, he's got the size like AJ Brown, but he's not AJ Brown. His production didn't really try and get to that next level to the senior year. It was like he had solid production. You just were enamored of how big he is at that size and running up so 4.5. He was just a traits guy that you hope those traits transition to the NFL, and it hasn't. And maybe it's towards that he hasn't had that quarterback play for him to succeed, or maybe he's just not that guy. Maybe he's just a wide receiver 4 that could be that big slot for you, and that's about it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but given that high draft capital for a guy like that, that's why fans are mad. That's why fans are upset at this. Like, you could have just say, I don't know if Jerry has this hatred toward the 4th-round pick, but this will be our second year without a 4th-round pick. I know we have a few comp picks. We got like 10 picks, now 9 picks right now. But that 4th-round pick, you could have got maybe a possible starting run back. It's a deep class running backs or some depth pieces on defense or anything like that. There's a lot of needs on the Cowboys, but you could have used that. But you said, no, let's use that 4th-round pick, get a receiver that had all these great traits we liked in the draft, but hasn't really panned out in the league. So we're kind of hoping we get a George Selvey, Laurent Robinson type of deal where we're like, maybe we'll get a receiver. Maybe he's lightning in the bottom. We get him in that because he's going to be on this team. His contract ends on 2026, if I'm correct. So we're getting him on the low. Maybe he'll pan out for the Dallas Cowboys, which are leaning towards this year, towards a tank season, rebuild season, to be in nicer terms. So when it comes to this trade, I'm giving it a D, to be honest with you, because you gave some good quality draft capital for a wide receiver. You could have got, maybe you could have said, we'll give you a 6. You give us a 7. We'll give you a 6 and you give us a 7. And Jonathan Mingo, fans ain't gonna get mad at that. But a 4th, that's too high a draft capital for a guy like him. Hopefully, I want to be wrong. Hopefully he shows out for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm wrong, and I'll be on here and say, hey, I was wrong. Jonathan Mingo is that guy. But as of now, I'm not feeling the capital that we gave for Jonathan Mingo. But we'll be back on Thursday to be talking about the Eagles and Cowboys game. But y'all tune in. But y'all have a good one. Peace.